Okay, we're going to talk about division. First, I want to model division on what it looks like and the different ways that you can write it as an expression. First of all, division is written like a fraction. The numerator divided by the denominator. So when someone asks you what operation is a fraction is division, the numerator divided by the denominator. It also could be written as numerator divided by denominator. And then it's also written as numerator divided by denominator. The numerator, when you're dividing, if someone asks you to turn a fraction into a decimal, the numerator always goes in the house, irregardless of which number is greater than or less than. The numerator always goes in the house. Remember that. Now, there's also two other names that you'll notice: dividend and divisor. The numerator, which is the first number, is the dividend, and the divisor is the denominator and the second number. So if we were looking at it this way, it would be the numerator being the dividend and the divisor being the denominator, and the answer to a division expression or equation is a quotient. So remember that. So when you see these words or this word, you should be thinking division. Okay, so this is how it's structured. Now, how do you recognize division versus multiplication? Because the hardest thing to do is to read a word problem and then say, okay, what operation is this? Well, first of all, let's talk about, before we go into this, let's talk about a simple division problem. 8 divided by 2. Which means let's say I have $8. I'm going to divide it equally into 2 parts. The answer, or the quotient, is going to be, well, how much does each part get? And that's $4. So I have $8, not divided by $2. It's $8 divided equally into 2 equal parts, and that will give me $4 in each part. If I were to model it, if I divide it into 2 equal parts, each part is going to get $4. Now, the inverse operation of division is multiplication. So if I were going to use the inverse operation, I would say each part gets $4, and I'd multiply it by how many parts. And so if I have each part times gets $4 and I have 2 parts, then I'm going to have a total of $8. So here's division and here's multiplication. Now, as we know, when you multiply, it doesn't matter, because the commutative property of multiplication says I can also say, well, how many, which would be the 2, times each part, which would be the 4, is going to give you the total of 8. So when we look at division, if they give you the total first, and they ask you either to divide it equally into a certain amount of parts, then they'll ask you how much each part gets. Or if they give you the total and they say to you, well, each part is going to get this much, how many parts are there? They just reverse this, then it's still division, as long as they give you the total. Now, when we look at this next, here's how you recognize division. The numerator, or the first number in a division problem, is always the total of what you're about to divide. Whether it's less than or greater than the other number, it doesn't matter. The total of whatever you're going to divide goes first. The second number is going to be either how many parts it's going to get divided by, and then the answer is going to be how much does each part get. But if you recognize, if they give you the total of whatever you're about to do, that's going to be the first, the numerator, or the first number. Now, the difference, again, in multiplication is that they're going to ask you what the total is. In division, they give you the total. For example, in multiplication, they'll tell you, I purchased 4 shirts and I paid $6. What was the total amount that I paid for the shirts? So this would be how many parts and how much was each. This would be parts, and this would be each. And then multiplication asks for the total. Division gives you the total. So that's what you have to recognize. So for example, in the book, one of the questions, number 10, says, Trevor paints 1/6 of the fence surrounding his farm each day. How many days will it take him to paint 3/4 of the fence? So if you see the word each, and then you see the total here, how many days will it take him to paint 3/4 of the fence? He's not painting the whole fence, but he's painting a total of 3/4 of the fence. So what happens is, this is the each, and they want to know how many parts or how many days. So the 3/4 goes first. That's the total fence that you're painting. You're going to paint the same amount of the fence each day, equal parts, and that's going to give you how many days. So they're giving you the total, they're giving you the each part, and then how many parts. So now you keep, change, flip, and that will give you, simplify before you multiply, 6 divided by 2 and 4 divided by 2. This gives you 2, and this gives you 3, and this gives you 9 over 2. You simplify by saying 9, which goes in the house, divided by 2 is 4 and 1/2, because your remainder becomes your numerator. So it's 4.5 days to paint 3/4 of the fence. So I mean, I could do all of these, but here's what you have to remember. If they give you the total, then it's division. If they ask you to find the total, then it's multiplication. Whether they give you fractions or decimals, it's not the amount or the numbers. It's the concept of understanding what they're asking you to find. So that's what I wanted to talk about today. Once you understand this, when you're doing a word problem, you should be able to do the calculation. When you divide fractions, you keep, change, flip, or multiply by the reciprocal. And that's it. So understand, this is the model for division right here. If they give you the total, they're going to ask you to divide either the part or how many equal parts or how much each one is. For multiplication, they're going to tell you how many you purchased. They're going to tell you how much each one cost, and they want to know what the total is. So let's focus when we're reading the word problems. Let's read it 2 or 3 times. Let's understand what they're asking. And then the rest, the calculation, should be the easy part. That's it.